call the December 15, 2022 Reno County Planning Commission meeting to order. Staff, will you call the roll?
Strand. Here. Schaefer.
Here.
Seltzer. Here. Macklin.
Here.
Jones.
Present.
Martin. Here. Sturgeon.
Here. Welcome to everyone on our last meeting for the year. Trust that you've all got a chance to review your packets that you received. Chair will entertain a motion concerning the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
I second that too.
Whatever.
I guess, Steve, you come in with a bang, is that?
Sure, fire alarm or whatever you want to call it. I get my coat on.
Yeah, for sure.
We practiced that in grade school.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the November 17 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. The Kansas Supreme Court has defined a rezone or conditional use permit public hearing as a quasi-judicial function to ensure the rights of all parties of interest and to provide an opportunity for each party to address the Planning Commission in an orderly manner. The Planning Commission will follow the fact-finding procedure which is outlined in the handout in each chair. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. If a recommendation is made tonight, that recommendation will be based upon the record of information presented to the Planning Commission. The County Commissioners will not conduct a separate public hearing or accept additional written documents. The County Commissioners will consider written requests for additional public comment or documents based only on valid claims that the public hearing process was incomplete or based upon new information which has become available since the public hearing. For purposes of this County Commission policy, a public hearing is considered incomplete only if the Planning Commission failed to follow its procedural guidelines, which resulted in a denial of due process to a party of interest, or if the Planning Commission failed to allow an interested party or an opportunity for public comment. For purposes of the County Commission policy, new information shall pertain only to germane information which did not exist at the time of the public hearing, or which was unknown or could not have been discovered with reasonable diligence. An example may be a traffic study completed after the Planning Commission recommendation. The Planning Commission recommendation to the County Commissioners will be accompanied by a summary of proceedings before the Planning Commission at its public hearing, along with a report and recommendations of the county planner, letters, informal petitions, and other information constituting the record of proceedings provided to the Planning Commission before and during the public hearing. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, this case will be presented to the County Commissioners at their next available meeting after the protest period expires. Contact planning staff or visit the website for the County Commissioners' agenda items. Any party who wishes to require the County Commissioners decide this case by a supermajority vote may file a protest petition pursuant to KSA 12-757 at the office of the Reno County Clerk, 125 West 1st Avenue, Hutchinson, Kansas, within 14 days following the decision by the Planning Commission. The form can be found on the Reno County website, Planning Department webpage. I'll now formally open public hearing regarding case number 2022-11, a request by Cargill Incorporated, the applicant Evergy, Jessica Keck, for a conditional use permit to expand an existing electrical substation on land zone agricultural district. The property is located on the west side of the South Halstead Street, approximately 1/2 mile south of the intersection of South Halstead Street and East Avenue G. Have any Planning Commission members had any outside contact regarding this case?
No.
No.
Do any of the Planning Commission members have conflict of interest with this case?
No.
Will the applicant please come to the podium? State your name and address for the record. You have 10 minutes to present your case. Additional time may be allowed at the discretion.
Jessica Keck with Evergy. Address is 818 South Kansas Avenue, Topeka, Kansas. and I'm here to present for our conditional use permit for our substation expansion in Reno County, just southeast of the city of Hutchinson. I will run through this real quick. So we're proposing to expand our existing substation using the existing entrances off Halsted, so we won't change the entrances into the substation. We're going to expand behind the property to allow for more equipment in there to increase reliability in the area and provide some more load for growth around the area. So the subject property is currently zoned ag, and I believe the ag requires a conditional use permit to expand a substation onto that property. It is currently owned by Cargill, but we have an option to purchase it, to expand it. The existing transmission lines are kind of hard to see, and I don't know, is there a pointer on this thing?
Yeah, there is, but you can't do it with the TV.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Yeah, you'd have to walk up if you want.
That's okay. So the green line right here, this is north, right?
Shut off one of the light switches right there on the wall would be helpful a little bit.
This green line is one of our 115 kV transmission lines coming in, and then the blue lines are our 69 kV transmission lines coming in. So it's an ideal spot. Obviously, we have a substation there currently too, but it's an ideal spot to expand
Leave it in the moment.
because to tie the lines into the new substation is rather simple at that point, because you just drop them in at the new substation, the expanded substation location. Sorry about that. This is just some pictures of the existing substation, so you have a reference of what it looks like. And then the property that we're going to expand on, or we propose to expand on as well. The proposed site plan of our sub, I'm going to come back up. This is the existing, kind of like on this part of it, is the existing. We're going to expand, we plan to expand this way. This is an easement that we're working on, or currently in negotiations with Southern Star to route their line around our substation boundary, because it can't go under where our equipment's going. So we're negotiating, working with them to reroute their line at our cost so we can expand the substation. The proposed current substation has a chain link fence, 8 foot with 3 strands of barbed wire for an extra foot on top. That's what we propose with this new one, is to surround it by barbed wire as well to match the existing conditions. Tallest structures inside the sub, about 35 feet. Doesn't include the transmission poles, but they shouldn't be any taller than what's currently out there. I think they're usually, and I don't know exactly what's out there, about 80, 85 feet, somewhere around there. And then I think we plan to have this in service by the end of 2025. So construction complete and in service by the end of 2025. And that is my presentation. Is there any questions? Anything I missed? Think of, guys? Covered it all? Any questions?
The fire department made note of necessity of locating a pipeline. I think there's an underground pipeline in there. Can you show me where that is? And I assume it's taken care of and out of the way.
It's the Southern Star line that I was talking about. This is the pipeline that goes underneath, and that's the reroute that we're talking about that will go around the property that we've discussed with Southern Star and came up with an agreement to provide them this easement so they can get in and maintain it.
Get in and get out
Yes.
if necessity
Yes.
occurs.
So it currently runs just west of your sub now?
It currently runs, you can barely, it's right here. It currently runs right here, right outside of our boundary.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What's the size of that pipeline?
What did he say? I can't remember what he told me, and we've been in several meetings with him, and I can't remember what he said the size of it
So
was.
what's the media that goes through the pipeline?
Natural gas.
Oh,
And then we made sure that, so we worked with Southern Star rather closely to make sure that the corners and the turns and everything that we've done works for them, is safe for them, and is what they require. And we'll sign an agreement with them and everything else.
We want it safe for emergency access to if the fire department has to get in there, or if someone's injured and you need to get an ambulance or something in there.
Correct.
As I reviewed the document, I was looking for an electrical one line that would tell me the incoming voltage and what it's transporting down to voltage, and I didn't find anything. So could you give me an overview of that?
I am not an electrical engineer. I don't do the transmission lines. I will tell you that they come in at 115 and 69 kV. I don't know if did we put in there what it steps down to? This is not a distribution sub, or is it? I just know that they come in at 115 and 69. I don't have a one line. We don't usually typically submit them. I can get you one.
But you don't know what the distributed voltage is out of that substation right now?
If it's distributed, it'll be 12 kV.
12 kV.
Thank you.
And how many, do you know how many circuits come out of there now and how many future circuits may come out of there?
We don't have a physical engineer assigned to this task yet since we don't own the property, but, I mean, when we have one, we're more than happy to share that.
Well, I am curious about that because my whole background is in the electric utility industry, and so, but you've satisfied me with your answers. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question. I live about a mile from one of these substations, and there's a booming sound periodically that I've associated with that because it didn't used to happen. And I always thought it was something about the birds, getting rid of the birds. So I don't know if Mr. Neighbor down there notices that or not, but.
You know, I haven't noticed it so much.
I'm not aware of any bird deterrents that we have on any of our substations. Have you?
No, a bird might cause a boom if it's on the line. That's the only thing that I would.
That would possibly also cause an outage though,
Right,
too.
you probably know.
And I've heard those before too, like in certain cities and stuff. I'm not sure, I've heard it mainly at grain elevators and stuff to keep the pigeons away. I'm not aware of anything at our substations that do that.
I didn't know what it was. I just thought that was a possibility, but I mean, I'm a mile away and I can hear those. And it doesn't happen all the time, it's just periodically. So I just wondered if, since there are some residential areas around this, if that was going to be happening there or not.
I would think not. I've never, aside from the comment right now, I've never heard of booms coming from our substations. So.
Maybe we should know about those.
Maybe we
So,
should.
I mean,
Find out where that is and we can see if it is us.
call that in.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. This time we'll hear from the planning staff.
Apologize for the delay. Mark Von Atchen, County Planner. As you've heard, this is a request to expand an existing substation to the west of the current one. So I'll kind of help orient you here. We're on South Hollishead Street. This is right to the west of the Siemens wind plant, which would be over here to the east there. The property in question is highlighted in purple. It is zoned agricultural, and as you know, all land uses that are not residential or agricultural in nature do require a conditional use permit. The current substation is zoned R2, and that's only just for the fact that of the parcel size. Because as you know, we don't zone for the actual land use. We zone to the parcel size, and everything else is a conditional use permit. In blue to the east is a facility that is owned by KDOT, and then everything that is in the cross-hatched orange area is actually within the city of Hutchinson. City of Hutchinson was sent a notice of this request for the fact that it is within their area of notification. As you may recall, they have a 1 mile notification area. And so we did send this packet of information to them, and as of now, I have not heard any response from the city of Hutchinson on this request. The parcel in question in purple is about 4.3 acres of ground. As you heard, the substation will be surrounded by a 8-foot tall fence with about another foot of barbed wire. You also heard today that there is a gas line on the property. I think that was thoroughly discussed by the applicant, so I won't really go into that. I will point out the fact that I did send a notice of this to Southern Star Gas Company, and I did not hear any response back for them. So it's good to hear that they are working with Southern Star on relocation of that. I did send them an official notice, just for the record here. I will also point out that the area is located within a 500-year floodplain. A 500-year floodplain is advisory in nature, is not regulatory, so essentially there really is no floodplain on the property which would require additional permitting. But it's just something that we advise people on, that, they need to be aware that during a major storm, it could flood to a 500-year level. There's also no houses. They're within about a half mile of this substation. I do have some other pictures here to kind of help orient you here. You can see over to the right, here's the Siemens plant here. The existing substation is right here, and then to the west is where they're looking at expanding that. The nearest houses are to the north up by Avenue G, which is way up in here. That's about a little less than a half mile away, but right at the half-mile line. Everything else is agricultural in nature. This whole area is owned by Cargill. The rest of these parcels are owned by the city of Hutchinson as part of their industrial park. A little bit closer view of the existing substation, and again, the expansion going to the west. Ground level shot taken in July of 2021 off of Google Earth. Here's the existing substation looking to the west. Again, the expansion will be behind this. And as you heard testimony, they're going to be using the existing driveways, so no additional driveways are going to be installed along Halstead Street. Turning around, this will be looking to the east. Again, vacant farm field right now, but within the city limits, and so the idea would be industrial development in the future right there, but nothing right there, no houses. And this picture is kind of looking to the south-southwest, so this is Halstead Street right here. I'm looking back toward, say, 50 Highway, for example. So you can see the existing substation, and you'll be over in this area where the development will be. I'll just go back just this way. So, next part of the report just discusses some of the requirements here. I can tell you that there's no parking requirements, anything like that. They're required with the substation. There's plenty of places to park within that area. No additional landscaping requirements were proposed or recommended. You heard about the height requirement. The agricultural district does not have a height requirement. The next part of the report talks about the factors that you need to use when deciding and recommending on a conditional use permit. I won't go over all of them. I will highlight a few of them. Number 2 I'll highlight is whether the location of the proposed use is compatible to the other land uses. I believe that the use is compatible due to the existing substation that's already in existence there and the industrial nature of the area, mainly to the east. The third one discusses impacts on transportation facilities and utilities, and I believe there's not going to be any impact on those areas. Number 4 is whether the use is made necessary or desirable because of change or changing conditions. I believe that the use is made necessary due to the potential for future growth in the area. You saw in their paperwork and heard testimony here, the area, they're looking at expanding the capability, and so due to the potential nature of the industrial park that's right across the street, the need is to expand that area and make it more reliable, so the use is necessary. And number 7, I'll highlight here about the comprehensive plan. I'm not going to go over all that, but in reviewing the comprehensive plan, I believe it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The next one, number 8, is the relative gain. We do believe outweighs the hardship imposed by the current owner. And so with that, it's kind of a brief overview of all the factors. Like I say, I'm not going to go over the whole entire report, but staff does recommend approval based off of the 11 factors that you see listed in the report. I did attach 4 conditions of approval. The first one is that the property shall be developed as per the submitted site plan and supporting application dated November 3rd of 2022. The applicant shall maintain the fencing identified on the plan of operation at all times. The applicant shall meet all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. And then, of course, the last one is one that we always put on there, that the county can rescind the conditional use permit should some of the conditions not be met. And so, we did not have any people from the public speak for or against, both verbally or in writing. You did see a memo from the health department. There's no need for them because there's not any kind of septic system or well needed. You also saw a memo from the fire district there talking about the project as well. So with that, I would stand for questions.
I know it's been stated, but refresh my memory, when is that project supposed to be completed?
End of 2025.
Mark, I have a question. It's mostly premature, but, you know, I feel compelled to think about the future sitting on this panel. And we just had a situation in the country where one of these substations was assaulted. And I have to think that that's a possibility that we'll have to deal with. And so how would we deal with these around the county if the electrical industry wants to put up concrete walls or whatever strategy might become reality? See where my question is? I mean, some of these are, this one is in an industrial area, so probably nobody cares, but if this was maybe more residential property around it, it might make a difference. I don't know. I mean, just the fact.
Putting up walls and maybe impacting a residential neighborhood.
Or just the fact that it may be targeted for, some sort of attacks.
Well, I think something like that's probably outside the realm of something that we would consider during our process. I think that's something that, Evergy would address in protecting their facility. We wouldn't get that heavily involved.
If it booms, somebody will come along and shoot it. How big is
Outside of requiring fencing, I mean, I think it's up to them to really review and make sure that their facility is adequately protected. We're not going to get into all that.
As a company, we are definitely looking into what might happen or what our next steps forward are. I mean, it's been discussed at the toppest level of our company. So I know it's concerned us, obviously, and it's concerned us as a company as a whole. And we're looking at what our next steps might be.
Mark, I guess I see the positives out of it is the expansion of that substation for future growth. That's growth in Reno County. That's positive.
Any other questions for staff?
Did that answer your question?
I didn't really expect an answer. It's just, I feel compelled to think about what might happen in the future and what scenarios we're creating that then we have to later deal with what has happened, so.
Well, I think it's certainly within our realm to review and question, make sure, is there fencing there? Is there a locked gate? I mean, minimums like that, but I think outside of going beyond something like that, I think that's really outside of our scope of authority and looking at something like that. That's mainly, the Evergy's responsibility to do that. And like you heard here, they're always conscientious of that.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this case, you may have 5 minutes to comment. Please come forward to the podium one at a time and state your name and address for the record before commenting. Audience members are only permitted to address the Planning Commission from the podium. Audience members are permitted only one time at the podium. In the interest of time, if you agree with the comments previously made by the audience members, please don't repeat the comments, simply state that you agree with the previous and present new information to the Planning Commission. Statements and questions should only be directed to the Planning Commission, not the applicant or staff. The Planning Commission may choose not to answer questions or engage with the public. Questions regarding the application can be asked to the Planning Commission and answered by the applicant during the rebuttal phase of this public hearing. See anybody walking up, so we'll go right on past. Do you have anything else to add about with your application? Okay. Planning Commission have any other additional questions? Staff, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'll now close the public hearing on this case. Acceptance or denial of a rezone or conditional use permit must be based on the factors that are listed in the staff report and found on the audience chairs. This time, Planning Commission, we can discuss this case and ask procedural questions of staff only. Is there any other further discussion on this case? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the case number 2022-11, the request by Cargill Incorporated, which is the applicant or Energy, requesting a conditional use permit from the Reno County zoning regulations to expand the existing electrical substation on 2 parcels of land zoned agricultural district be approved based on the 11 factors and 4 conditions listed in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
Strand. Yes. Schaefer.
Yes.
Seltzer.
Yes.
Macklin.
Yes.
Jorns.
Yes.
Martin. Yes. Gertson.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
I think concrete wall is about 10 feet tall. You have room on your site plan for more concrete there?
It might happen as well.
Someday.
Steel covered?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We may get there.
We may get there. That's right. It's unfortunate.
I had that very same thought, based on what happened.
Okay, moving on in our agenda. Item B, consider for approval of the Planning Commission Resolution 2022-01, setting the dates and time and location of the 2023 Planning Commission meetings. You would have had that in your packets. Is there any comment, questions, concerns?
Third Thursday of the month, same as it's always been, 4:30 PM.
If you want a different date or time, now's the time to speak. Okay, seeing no discussion, and Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the 2023 meeting dates as presented in Resolution 2022-01.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, staff, you want to call a roll on this one?
Sure, we can do that. Strand.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Seltzer.
Yes.
Macklin.
Yes.
Jorns.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Gertson.
Yes. Okay. Meeting dates are set. Next item of business is our annual review of zoning and subdivision regulations for any corrections or additions. Any discussion? Staff?
I would just add, I think staff has a pretty clear direction on where this board wants to go with some of the regulations. You know, we've discussed this thoroughly earlier this year regarding solar, and we've had some other discussions on setbacks, and so I'm pretty clear on what we need to do. I think our top priority would probably be the solar regulations. We're going to try and commit some time now to work on that. And so if there's other things that you see in the regulations, certainly, bring them up. Now is the time to kind of discuss that if you want more information on. But this is something on the agenda that's every December, and it's something that's a requirement of the statutes to review this along with our comprehensive plan for any kind of changes. And so that's why you see it on the agenda every year. It just kind of gives us an opportunity to take a pause and take a look and see, are there things that need to be adjusted based off of our year in review, really.
I think you've got some pretty good direction from us. I mean, you've got the solar piece, and then also we've visited about the setbacks, and we're working through that piece of that puzzle. I imagine soon enough we'll get to review the final stages of that.
Yeah. I think on the solar, the plan is to do it like we did the wind. We'll come up with a draft so that you guys have a starting point and can go from there instead of starting from nothing. So Mark and I really need to get involved with that. And I would hope, Mark probably won't like this, but I would hope that we would have that for you by one of the meetings in February.
Something to shoot for.
Draft of proposed regulations.
For solar, because we need to get on that. We're getting some pressure on that because there's interest in the area, so
Exterior is out.
we're gonna,
Full pieces.
we plan on having that to you by one of the meetings in February, so we can tackle that, so you can tackle that.
And if we need to, we can, do a special meeting potentially if you want to just take time. It's too early to determine if we've got anything in February right now, but we can certainly look at the February meeting if we need to have a special meeting and just look at that. That's something this board can consider in the future.
Maybe we can, in our January meeting, we'll have a better handle on what that looks like. And
Definitely.
we can determine at that time.
I'll definitely know the agenda for February by our January meeting. Yeah, I'll definitely know that so we can update the board then. But the other thing, I know we talked about manufactured homes earlier in the year or even maybe late the previous year about updating that. And it's just staff time right now. It's, the desire is there. It's just the time to commit to do that. So like I say, I've gotten several suggestions from this board, and we're going to try and get on those.
Okay.
But if there's anything else, certainly, we went through our first subdivision, and so if there's things in there you see that maybe we need to adjust, certainly do that. And you can do that any time during the year. It doesn't necessarily have to be at this meeting, but this is just our annual review.
Well, I appreciated those meetings earlier in the year as a newbie, kind of getting up to speed, and I guess I wonder if it's customary that this group goes through a similar exercise every year, just sort of our own version of, a look forward and what's on our mind, or was that just one-time happening?
Mark and I visited prior to the meeting, and the way it looks in January, correct me if I'm wrong, but January looks like it has an open agenda. And
Yeah.
we'll take that time to do just that.
Yeah.
So if there's a subject that you would like to address, that would be the time. If you want to give Mark a little heads up of what you're looking for. I'm talking to Garth, but I shouldn't be addressing all of them. If any of you have something on your mind for that January meeting that you need a refresher on, or if we just have a subject that you want to cover, please get in touch with Mark and let him know so he can prepare.
I think it was a good exercise that we did with, the regulations and other trainings we did. So, I think it's something we could certainly look at when our agenda's lighter. Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion on that agenda item?
Mark, I had a quick question on the zoning map. Does, KDOT's moving right along on their K96 realignment up by Nickerson.
Okay.
Does that affect the map
No,
at all? Not,
no,
that doesn't change any zoning on that?
no,
or-
I mean, they purchased property, for
Right.
the new, and so.
And it's right of way now, right?
It
So-
doesn't affect the map as far as the underlying zoning. Now, what it could do is affect the zoning as it relates to the parcel size. We tried to, when we did the zoning map, every parcel 40 acres and greater is zone ag, residential between 3 and 39 acres, so on and so forth. So it could be a situation where if the right-of-way cuts through an agricultural parcel that's 40 acres and now it's 35 acres, it doesn't meet the minimum standard of 40, it doesn't really hurt anything, it's just now classified as a legal non-conforming parcel. It's still gonna be zoned agricultural, it doesn't mean that the person can't build anything on it or do anything with it, it just means that in the zoning world, it's classified legal non-conforming. And legal non-conforming meaning that the property owner didn't do anything wrong, it's just circumstances changed, and now, with the purchase of that property, now the parcel's non-conforming.
So they retain the same zoning, just grandfathered in on it, basically, because.
Yeah.
Now,
The way our
if they sell that,
regulations-
if
yeah.
they sell that, does that carry over with it then?
It carries over, yep, it carries over, I mean, yeah, it's just something, the way our regulations are set up, it just means that it's just a non-conforming parcel because it doesn't meet the minimum parcel size, but it doesn't really hurt anything. A little bit of a difference in setbacks, but other than that, no.
Good question. Any other discussion on item C? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item D, annual review of comp plan for any corrections or additions. I'm going to kind of loop in the solar stuff. Is there something that we need to look at as far as some verbiage there as we're looking? I'm just thinking of running parallel with that. If we're going to change some verbiage in our zoning regs, is there something that we need to review as a board on the comp plan side to change?
Potentially. I'd say at this point in time, I think it's too early to tell. I haven't sat down and reviewed every single page of the comprehensive plan, but,
I haven't either. I just, something that came to my mind as we were talking about the solar regs and that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
but it's a good thought, because, we did that with the wind. We had to
Yes.
change the comprehensive plan. My initial thought is no, probably not. But it does warrant a review by staff and the board to see if, is there something that we need to, adjust with that. So that could
So we
be,
can see that in our future.
we definitely could. We could see
Yeah.
a potential amendment to the comp plan with regards to solar.
But that could result of it just being in parallel.
Yes, yeah. You gotta remember, because the comprehensive plan is usually adopted first when you're looking at the world of zoning and stuff. And then the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations are put in place to help implement the goals of the comprehensive plan. We did it backwards here in this county. We adopted our zoning and subdivision regulations first, and then we did a comprehensive plan. But really, that's the purpose of the zoning regulations and the sub-regs, to help implement the goals that you and the commissioners set out for the comprehensive plan and stuff. So that's why we had to change that for the wind, is because the wind was alluding to the fact that we were going to allow it, and now we've switched directions and said we want to prohibit it in a certain area, so we had to make those two mesh together. So definitely something that we will have to review more thoroughly to make sure.
When is the big review of the comp plan? I mean, what kind of time schedule are we on for that?
Usually it's like every 10 in a county. If you're a rapidly growing or fast growing, county, and what's the definition of fast growing? I don't know, that's in the eyes of the beholder, I guess.
That wouldn't be Reno County.
Okay, in Harley's idea, it would not be Reno County then. If you're rapidly growing, like maybe say like Wichita, Sedgwick County, something like that, you would maybe do it every 5 years. Okay, like, as you know, they're expanding north along some of their major roads. And so something like that you would want to update, so how far north do you want to do that expansion? In our county, like, Harley mentioned, maybe we're not growing as rapidly, so probably every 10 years, along with the census, because, the comprehensive plan has a lot of census data in it, so that's when you would want to update that. So, we're halfway through it right now. It was adopted in 2018, and so probably the next couple of years, we're going to be looking at trying to get funds available to have that updated.
I didn't know.
So we're ready to go.
where- I knew about when we did it.
Yeah, so.
Just didn't know what kind of schedule we were on the big,
Typically,
on
yeah.
the big review.
Typically, it's like every 10 years with a projection out, like 25 to 30 years in the future.
They usually bring in an outside consultant on that.
We have in the past, yeah. That's usually the good, that person usually helps facilitate meetings with cities, townships, citizens, for input. And they're the ones that help collect all the data and put it all in place. Typically it's a very cumbersome task for staff to do it in-house, but that's something to decide in the future of how it's done. And everything, so.
Would we ever need to be aware, you mentioned Sedgwick County, and since we share borders with Sedgwick County, if they would make some sort of major change in their plan, where you'd have our plan and their plan, and they would be significantly different. I'm not sure what I'm thinking of for an example, but maybe lot size or developments or whatever. Do you keep track of Sedgwick County's plan and how that might come up against Reno County's border?
I don't, mainly because the cities are so far away. Mount Hope is probably 3 miles from the county line, and so at this point in time, I wouldn't keep track of that as tightly as maybe you would think, because they're not rapidly growing that way. Now, if we started seeing developments come out that way, then certainly. More so, though, you would keep track of cities within the county. So, City of Hutchinson, City of Haven, Bueller, what are they doing? Because, we want to make sure that our comprehensive plan matches their future growth of their city. We don't want to be doing residential subdivisions in areas that they have identified as commercial or industrial parks. And so it's more in line with the city. So when we do our comprehensive plan, that's why we get with the cities, because we want to learn what are their comprehensive plans saying, what are their future land use maps saying. Future land use maps become very important when you have like commercial and industrial zoning districts, where you can rezone property to a certain zoning district and allow a lot of uses, what we call by right, meaning you can just go ahead and get a permit with a site plan. With us being conditional use based, anything is potentially allowed in any zoning district with a conditional use permit, so we don't have that future land use map. But we also want to kind of know what cities are doing and how they're growing and make sure that we're not in conflict with those. But there could be situations where, a county, a county, we would want to look at that. A city could be located potentially in 2 counties, for example. Like Nickerson, they could grow and leak over into, was it Rice County up there? So, but, yeah.
Right now, predominantly, all the land on the county borders is primarily ag land.
Yes. Yeah. So I say it's less important, but cities would be contacting us to learn about our plan, probably if they start really growing toward our county line.
Well, there is a fair amount of development west of Wichita that's creeping noticeably this direction.
Yeah. Yep, there is.
Any other discussion on that item? Okay, we'll move into other business. Staff, do you have anything to
I
add?
have several items, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I'd like to do is recognize Mr. Jorns. This is his last meeting, unfortunately, with us tonight. After 9 years on the Planning Commission, he started in January of 2014, and this is his second a second 9-year term on this board here after,
I think I only did 5 the first time.
did you do 5?
I think I filled in for somebody that
Did you, and then took a break and then came back, and so.
that was back in the 90s.
So I think we're going to miss him a lot. I think, yes, we will. We appreciate his dedication and his expertise, and who's going to ask us if we actually really do need an easement every time we do that, and stuff. So I wanted to.
Just, Don, just by force of habit, just recognize.
But seriously, I just want to publicly thank you for your dedication and your service, and you will be missed, and we would like to, have you come to a future county commission meeting to be recognized if you're available.
Is there a gold watch involved? Or
There might be, you never know, we'll see.
Don't hold your breath, Don.
Don't hold your breath, but there might be, who knows?
Turn your wrist purple.
You'll be a surprise, but no, your help in developing the current regulations that we have was very valuable and stuff.
I had a thought while we were visiting here moments ago. We kind of made a big change in our zoning regs a few years ago when we just did away with commercial districts and commercial zone districts, and we just went to residential and agricultural and our lot sizes accordingly. Are those similar to our other counties, follow kind of that same kind of design, such as Sedgwick County or Harvey County, that kind of share that same?
Sedgwick County, no. Harvey County, no. But Marion County, yes. And I think, the concept is catching on a little bit more with some of the more rural counties where they are starting to recognize that, maybe it's a lot easier to approve commercial industrial zoning district uses when all you do is a conditional use permit and you're not going through having to change the zoning. I mean, because you were a part of that, Ken, I think, and we struggled with that a lot. We like the development, it's good for the county, but how do we go through and make this property commercial? Because if that commercial business leaves, the zoning stays in place with the property, and so somebody else could buy that, and what one land use may be for a property good, another land use may be horrible for that area.
And they want to tear it down and build a house, or?
I mean, somebody that wants to build trusses or do a landscaping business, that might be perfectly fine. But then somebody that wants to, turn it into a junkyard, that may not be such a good idea, but the zoning would allow that, for example. So I think.
It's much simpler now than.
Yeah, it's much simpler, We can sit there and we can say that a landscaping business is not gonna impact that area, you put up a fence and you're good to go, but if you wanna do another type of land use, you wanna do a junkyard next to a residential subdivision, that's not the best location, so we can approve one commercial land use on a property and deny another type of commercial land use on the same property, and I think it works for this county, I really do. And I think you were a part of that, kind of struggling with that.
I was in the room when it was discussed.
Yeah. So.
No, I just wanted I think you raise a good point, though. If there's compatibility between the county line, what separates one county from the other, so. I don't know how Sedgwick County views residential areas and acreage requirements and such in there. Now, I live way out in the far corner, and I'm very close to Stafford and Kingman County both, which have been zoned for a couple of generations already. I don't even know what they're doing now, what requirements for land use or for construction of rural residences. We have tried at some length to maintain the requirements so we can maintain agricultural suitability in many cases, but I don't know what other counties do in that regard. I think Pratt County is pretty much the same as ours, though. I think it's just
I think they are.
It's mostly just ag and residential.
Yeah.
Conditional use permits.
I said there's not too many counties, but I think it's catching on as years, because I think, like I said, they're starting to realize it's becoming more and more. It's more difficult when it's just a person that has maybe one employee, or maybe it's just themselves, and how do we approve this without changing the zoning? It's not like you've got a huge corporation going into a property, it's just one person that has a small business, and, he doesn't have any houses nearby, so is it really hurting anything? It just takes that review, and so that's where I think this concept really has helped us. I think we've approved a lot of commercial uses, which quite frankly may have struggled a little bit if we had to change zoning, out there, and so I hope you guys like the concept and find it working, well.
Well, it does seem to be synchronized with the life cycle of businesses these days, which come and go more frequently than they used to, and especially small businesses and home businesses.
Yeah.
We didn't used to see the changes that we see now, and the businesses come and businesses go at a faster pace. So it does seem to be an easier strategy to work with.
And Mark, as you acknowledge Ken's past experience, it wasn't too long after I joined this group that I began to hear many years of past experience that Ken shared with us on certain occasions, and particularly he seemed to have knowledge of how the public would react, or good or bad, to everything going on around us. And so I acknowledge his time here too.
One thing we did back in the 90s, I had a part of then, and it had to do with a state grant, and one of our local politicians had arranged for some state monies to be available for counties and cities to hold planning meetings en masse, very large-scale public meetings to discuss what their futures were and which way they wanted to go. I was the chairman of the group at that time, I believe it was 1991, and we worked together with what was in the former Economic Development Commission, and we kind of applied jointly for one of those grants. We got like $20,000 for, I don't know what level of state government administered those grants, but we got a substantial sum of money to hold a planning process, and had expert speakers from out of town, come in and talk about the future and where they saw Kansas government and Kansas business and such going on, and what we should be looking for en masse. And we had group discussions. I don't know if anything like that is available anymore. I think that was probably a one-time thing that one of the state senators from this area got funding through the legislature for that. But I don't know if anything like that has any value anymore to invite the public in. And we invited school boards and county, township boards and local city commissioners from all the small cities for large scale group discussions, and then they broke down into smaller scale working groups to come up with ideas. And I think we kind of pursued that for 10 or 15 years after 1990, 91. I don't know if there's any merit to trying to pursue something like that again or not, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that kind of stuff is still available or not, but yeah.
I have no idea. I probably went through the Kansas Department of Commerce. I don't know. I don't know if there's any interest in pursuing something like that again.
Yeah.
30 years later.
Did you feel that the outcomes of that were beneficial?
Well, it generated some ideas, and I did a couple of things. Some of the Hutchinson city leaders who never met anybody from west of Partridge before suddenly shook hands with some people from Turon and Arlington, and we made some I think friendships there and some connections, networking possibilities and opportunities, and I think it kind of got more of us to thinking beyond, outside the box a little bit and beyond the next year and what was going to happen in our own little areas, but maybe working more together as a unit. I don't know. We came up with some policies which were pursued for a while, and I think a lot of them have kind of fallen by the wayside since then. So, or fallen into disuse, but I think they were agreeable at the time. So I really enjoy the exercise. I was not totally, personally, I was not totally overwhelmed by the resolutions that came out of it. I thought we could have generated a little more than we did, but a little more powerful things than we did, but.
So refresh my memory, just how many years did this old timer serve on this?
I think I was on for 5 or 6 years, back in the 90s sometime, and then I was off until 9 years ago.
Yeah,
14 or 15.
so, 14, 15 years he did. So I said in the 1990s, and took a break, and then he came back in January of 2014 until now.
I failed the final exam and I had to take the class over.
This time he passed.
No, I repeat, I've listened attentively to, particularly when he talked about sometimes good and sometimes bad experiences he had out dealing with people in our county. I think I acknowledge that and thank him for his.
We still have not come to grips with whether or not we want to do countywide zoning. We did maybe accomplish something with the overlay that went on with regard to wind tunnels or wind turbines, but.
Yep, you weren't able to get that under your term.
And maybe we've got done what needs to be done now.
Well, we did get it zoned as far as the wind zoning district, so we can't really say that we're unzoned. I mean, we got everything that's zoned, it's just that there's no regulations out west except for wind, and so, but, so we at least got a little bit, we accomplished that much under your term.
Has my replacement been appointed?
I believe so, and that kind of brings me to point number 2. I believe in the audience is Ms. Gayla Schwartfeger, and she is your replacement. She'll be.
I was afraid of that when I saw her coming.
So you recognize her, and she'll be starting.
She's a good gal.
Is she? I don't know. Not sure. If you'd like to say something to the board, I could not put you on the spot or anything, but.
Oh, I'm Gayla Schwartfeger, and I'm from out west where Kenneth's from, the southwest corner, and my husband and I do farming and cattle, and then we also do crop consulting, and I've known Ken for years, and I know he'll have some big shoes to fill. So, yeah, I'll.
Her husband's been on the township board for most of this century.
27 years, I believe. 27.
27 years?
Yeah, I remember he
My
talked
dad
to
was
your
on for
dad.
38, so he's getting there.
Right, yes, exactly, so.
Her husband and her brother-in-law are both on the Miami Township boards and have been for many years, so she's got some insight there from local issues here.
So I look forward to listening and learning. I'll try.
We'll help you through it here, as we can here.
I'll need help, yes.
I can bring all my files and paperwork over to your.
You keep them at your place and then I'll come visit.
No, you don't can, if you want to burn them, you're going to have to get a burn permit.
Now, where is your farm located out?
I live south of Turon 1 mile and then back to the west 1/4 mile. You can see our house off the blacktop that goes south out of Turon.
Okay.
So we live right.
I'm familiar with that country because my wife is from Penalosa, Kansas.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you probably know Sally and Art Vernon.
Oh, yes, yep.
Sally is my wife's look-alike cousin.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, you have a pretty wife then, so. Well, thank you, and I look forward to serving with you guys.
So we'll be working with her and talking to her, and then her term will start January 1 officially, and so we'll go easy on her and everything, since we don't have any cases with Janice. We'll take it slow here and everything. So so with that, a couple other points, Mr. Chairman here. Not to be remiss, but Steve was reappointed to his second 3-year term, so.
Yeah, I have my head examined.
Yeah.
Mark was wishing, hoping I wouldn't, so,
Yes, so congratulations to you, and appreciate you re-upping for another 3-year term here, and stuff. So that was just recently approved on Tuesday along with Gala, so we did that with no discussion, so thank you for that. We kind of talked about here, formally, no cases in January, and so I was thinking several options for the board. We can do a training session, further reinforce what you've already learned this past year, but also to help, Gala as well. I was thinking about inviting our county counselor, Patrick, in to give a little talk. We can do that. I can try to do something formal if you want, as far as the training goes, or if you just want to have like a roundtable discussion, or if you want to give me 3 or 4 topics you want to have discussion on. A little early to think about it, but I mean, if you have anything, just email me, let me know. We can certainly do that. If by some chance we can get the solar regs, at a point to where we can review them and ready, we can certainly do that as well, or we could cancel it. I mean, cancel the meeting, give yourself a break, but I think with some of the new members, coming on and everything, I think it'd be good to maybe have Patrick come in. We can try and limit it to hour and a half at the most, like that, or whatever you guys would want.
One thing I would throw out, I mean, from your standpoint, Mark, you know the areas of the zoning regs, subdivision regs, comprehensive plan that we deal with most during the year. Maybe there's some parts of that we need to be refreshed on.
Yeah.
In just those specific areas that come up on a more recurring basis.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I've talked to Patrick a little bit, county counselor, and he's got some ideas on mainly like on role of the planning commission member, maybe the do's and don'ts, and what can you do, what should you do, that type of stuff. And so he can give a brief talk. And he hasn't really sat down and really formally met you guys as a board either. And so he would like to do that. He's been here a while and he hasn't really met any. He's been sitting in the audience for a couple of our meetings, but he hasn't really sat down and got to know you guys. And so he'd like to do that as well. And I talked to him this morning and he's willing to do that. So he'll come and do that. So, okay. So then without any objections, then I guess I'll plan on something like that for January. Last thing I have right quick, just informational purposes, a review of the year. I kind of look back at everything. We processed 11 cases, including the one tonight. We had 4 conditional use permits. We did 2 rezones. We did 1 Board of Zoning Appeal meeting. We did 3 vacations. 1 was a sidewalk, remember, and 2 utility vacations. And we did 1 subdivision. So only 11 cases this year, but it seems like we were really busy. We had some controversial ones, and you guys did a good job working through all that with the public, and I think you guys did good. So it's kind of a little year in, because in the past, I think maybe Russ and Ken remember a lot of, mainly more than anything, we were doing 22, 25 cases a year. A lot of them were for sheds, and it seems like the text amendment that we did here earlier has kind of solved that a little bit. And I've noticed it in the permit, and I've done some bigger sheds, and yeah, they still fit under our 5,000 square foot limit. So I think that number right now is working for us. So.
I've noticed some popping up and that we haven't had to we haven't seen them come through on a case.
Yeah, so you kind of wonder, so.
Did the regs get formally changed regarding lot sizes with regard to total square footage of buildings that can be on? Did we propose that to commissioners, and did they adopt that?
Yes. Yep, we did.
So
we went through that.
You'll have
public
fewer
hearing.
cases with building sizes.
Yep, so they appreciated that looking into that, and anything we do to maybe make it less process, and that's what the regs are. And, we got to look at it. Is it warranted that we need to review that or not? I mean, right now we've set the standard at 5,000 square feet, so we'll, if we start getting more cases, we'll have to review it and say, yeah, we still want to look at that, or maybe we need to up it. But so that was a good change, and so I hope to be able to do more of those and bring more of them to you, because I think there's other things that we can tweak to make it better. Yeah, it's just it's a staff time thing right now, and so I'll be able to hopefully get to that with a little bit of a break here. So That's all I have for other business, so I appreciate the time.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.